Since I don't have a lot to do at the moment anyway, I thought I'd share with you what sadistic stalking looks like in your home. See this little foldable stepping stool? It's a replacement. Whoever's been picking the lock destroyed the previous one. That was an accident for me waiting to happen because I often stood on it with buckets of water. Here is my duvet. One evening it got turned upside down. That is, the top end was at the toe end and the toe end was at my neck, which you notice when you crawl into bed in the evening and find that you have all the buttons around you. Bird food. I have 2 bags of bird food. They got semi-emptied in the course of the last 2 weeks. Half of the contents of them has suddenly disappeared. Here is my kitchen countertop with a lot of dirty stuff. One day I found a container similar to that one a little bit, upside down and having been sliced at the bottom properly to make it sort of resemble female genitalia. This is the inside of a cage in which I sometimes keep a bird. The bird in here got interfered with. Several birds have gotten interfered with, injured and killed even. Here we have a light switch. When I moved in, this light switch wasn't working properly, so I unscrewed it and after a while, fixed the wires because the screws hadn't been fastened properly. So whoever was picking the locks at some point opened this thing again and unfastened one of actually both wires, and one of the screws or both screws were behind the wires in the cavity behind this switch. And because I didn't notice that right away, I thought the thing had just broken down again or something. One day I found that this thing had been moved to the side completely so I could look into the wall, and I suddenly spotted that from my desk. That's how I discovered that this had been tampered with. Here you see 2, what should I call them, containers for glasses, sunglasses and so on. One of them had been destroyed one day. This is my box with socks to mend. A few days ago I discovered that there were 2 socks in there, padded socks with padded soles that did not need mending, and 1 sock that I hadn't seen in a long time. Apparently had disappeared a long time ago because whoever picks the locks also often takes things and sometimes returns them again 1 or 2 years later. That one does have 2 holes in them. I don't know where the other one is. And here is where my socks live. Approximately half of my black socks have disappeared, and I did indeed have a few socks there that had suddenly disappeared. What's also happened is that a bunch of these, I used to have a lot of these in bright colors. 5 to 6 pairs of those suddenly disappeared from my dirty laundry, and some cigarette ashes had been left. And some point later I had more black socks, so somebody took 5, 6 pairs of these in really bright colors and replaced them by black socks. Here you see the back of one of my screens. One day the screen wasn't working anymore, and that was because one of the cables had been loosened. Here you see a larger screen that I got fairly recently. After I just bought it and it was just standing here on the windowsill, I came back one day and it had been completely moved around. It was at an angle. Yeah. Here we are in my bathroom. One day I found a black smudge having been applied to the side of this bathtub. No idea why. I also came into the shower one morning and discovered that my soap had been flattened. Can you see that? Had been completely flattened on one end, and a bunch of hairs had been attached to it. They probably came from my brush. The idea was probably to make me think that they were somebody else's hairs. Crazy, just really crazy. this sweet little creature has been interfered with. And here you see my vitamins and so on. I had a small, what do you call them, bottle of CoQ10, and I knew that there were only a few left in there because it was hot weather and these things were sticking to one another, and I actually had to take them out in order to be able to take one out, and I put the remaining ones back, and all of a sudden the bottle was empty. Here again you see part of my kitchen counter, I suppose you should call it. There's been vandalism here twice. Everything got wiped off the windowsill onto the kitchen counter. It was a big mess. The first time I just shrugged. The second time I also shrugged, and halfway through cleaning up I took a photograph and sent it to the city council later. This has been going on, this abuse, lots of other abuse as well, for nearly 15 years, for over a decade. Here you're looking at the top of one of my suitcases, my smallest suitcase. I discovered that this had been opened and things in it had been messed with. There was, for example, a CD that had been removed from its hole and was now rattling around loose. And I also think that some herbal sleeping pills that I had in there have been taken from it as well. I'm not 100% sure about the latter, but I bought 3 of those packets because they were on sale. And I was pretty damn sure that I tucked one away in here. Here you see one of my bags. I keep this in my office. It's usually standing here. One day I found a bar of Cashew Crush in it. Here you see a blanket. One day this thing was in my other room, in my main room. It had a yellow sticker on it, and there was a similar yellow sticker on this. Caring, it turns out, is a competitive advantage and one that takes effort, not money, says Seth Godin. That had a yellow sticker, and my blanket had a yellow sticker on it. Another day I found a note written in the book. I have found bank cards taken, and I also recently found this. I had bought this book. This was not in it. This was not folded. One day I saw that this had been folded, and it says, but of course the main, the central, the chief point is one of principle, that the freedom of the individual is precious and hard-won, is a precious and hard-won value which these measures corrosively attack. That's what my life has been. That's what my life has been like for nearly 15 years. Interference with my life that takes my freedoms away. I did not choose my energy supplier. At the end of 2019, my energy supplier got transferred several times since the end of 2019, and I would always have to call around to find out who exactly was supplying my energy. Somebody was just messing around with me. This has been going on for a very long time, and nobody believes it because nobody can imagine that somebody would do something like this to a stranger, to a complete stranger. And this, by the way, is a painted rock. This is a natural rock that I painted one day. This is a really strange thing. It's flint. Yeah, it probably is, because most of what I find is flint. Yeah, my freedoms have been taken away. I have zero control over my life. I didn't get to choose. Never mind. I want my life back. I'm a highly educated, highly capable, intelligent human being. I want to be able to do a little bit more than just watch YouTube videos all day when I have internet access, sign petitions, sleep and read library books. That's all basically my stalker wants me to do. Do as good as nothing. He also doesn't want me to interact with other people, makes him jealous. These earbuds disappeared from my flat one day. A few months later, they suddenly were back again. I keep them near my bed usually. This is a garment that he took one day and then returned months later. It's by Gold Digger. I don't know whether that's supposed to have any meaning. I have no idea. And this is a USB stick that suddenly disappeared at the start of 2009. He returned it to me at the end of 2010. This is my door. I've come home to find it unlocked several times. I didn't think that that was me, but I did not anticipate that somebody was picking my lock, so I told myself I must have forgotten. One day I came home and the door was open, standing open. This wall is my bathroom wall. It used to have a heavy reproduction suitable for bathrooms on the wall here. One day, it was a Good Friday actually, I came home from the supermarket and this heavy reproduction had been moved on the wall. I've given it away to a charity shop in the meantime. And of course, the lockpicking gave direct access to all my equipment. Do you really want me to go on? At my previous address, what would also happen is that, for example, I would post something on FreeCycle and then I would either receive an offer of something that I needed at a great distance from where I was, or I offered something and then I would say I'll drop it off. And that would then be also at a great distance from where I was. Sometimes I would then still get a message from that person thanking me, blah, blah, blah. But if I left a second item so that I could check that whoever was contacting me was that person or somebody else, it would turn out to be somebody else, not the address where I dropped it off. These things were very clearly also intended to just get me out of the house so that whoever was picking my locks could get into my house. You may say cameras. Yeah, I've tried cameras, but motion detection and hiding something was pretty tricky, I discovered. I did recently buy some better stuff, but it's kind of a pain to constantly have to charge everything and place your camera strategically. And then even, so I haven't been successful yet, but even if I had images so that I could see who's doing this, I probably would have absolutely no idea who the person in question is, and you cannot take this to the police. They're not interested. I've also changed logs, added logs, upgraded logs. It has at most kept the person out for about a month. There are several entrances here. For a lockpicker, there are 5-6 different routes into this flat. What can I say? I found that one of the problems with motion detection is that if you place a camera and you think it's really well placed, what you often get is that it just triggers the motion detection and then a second later, just after it kicks in, the person has moved beyond that point. So the motion activation gets triggered, but the person does not show up. I've been testing this with myself, of course. I have been placing this thing around, cameras around strategically, and I should be doing this every second I leave my flat. But these things need to be kept charged, and then every time you need to hide them strategically, and every time you need to check them. This takes over your life. Sadistic stalking really takes over your entire life. There is absolutely nothing left. It becomes your entire life. Your entire life starts revolving around this shit. There's nothing you can do about it. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Once you've lost your income, you're stuck. You can no longer escape. You can no longer go anywhere. You can no longer break out of your situation. There was similar stuff. My locks were getting picked at my previous address as well. I did not anticipate that. I assumed that it was the letting agency, I've meanwhile realized it was not the letting agency because things were done that did not add up. The flat was going to be sold. I didn't know that. Messages were listened to. You can imagine that a letting agency does that. But something was installed as well, and in hindsight, it makes absolutely no sense that the letting agency did that. It must have been in there many, many times before. I remember that I had to renew something and found online that there was no agency here in town, and I had to go to another city. Turns out there was an agency here in town. There was no need for me to travel to another city. It was just so that somebody could go into my flat and do God knows what. There was an arrow. There was a slogan painted on the wall with an arrow to my name. A bird's head was left. A peach cut in the shape of female genitalia was left. All sorts of other things. Flower pots were smashed and so on. Yeah. I never saw this coming.